Okay, so let us start today's session with a vision towards this course. So the course includes three things. The first is SQL Server Database Administration, second is performance tuning, and third is PowerShell, right? So far, I understand that all you are somewhat experienced guy. Someone have experience of 2 to 4 years, someone have even experience of 10 years. No one is fresher here, so far I understand. Am I correct? Yes or no? Okay, that's fine. So if anybody does not have knowledge of database administration background, let me know so that I can mold my knowledge delivery style in that standard. Nothing is impossible for me to deliver in the way that you can understand. So that's why I'm asking. The very important thing is here, since DBAs don't have programming background, so it is somewhat hard for them to write programs either in T-SQL or in any language or a scripting language such as PowerShell, or in Unix you have Bash shell, C shell, Corn shell, etc. shells are there. So a scripting language is, somewhat, really strict somewhat. They are not so user friendly, or they are not so close to the pseudo language or English-like language, like you have T-SQL statements. But yes, even it is cryptic, even it is somewhat, mysterious. If you understand it from very beginning, it is not hard, right? So what you have to understand when you are learning any language, right? Let us talk about that. And while I'm talking first about the PowerShell, let me talk about that first, right? You are well acquainted to SQL Server. You are doing administration there. So if I start administration from any level, you will grasp that. When I will deliver performance tuning topics related to SQL Server, I hope that you will also grasp that, because you know how to work in SQL Server from a DBA prospect. But how to automate SQL Server using PowerShell, it is completely new to you, and most of you are new to programming, right? So my plan is to just start with the concept of language, constructs of language, data types, those are available in language. From there, you can start. And as we will progress towards administration, for example, when we have to create a database, I will create that database from the GUI method in SQL Server. I will show you. You know that very well. But while you are creating a database, there are some advanced parameters, or parameters are there that you have to understand correctly. So that's why you there. You are here to learn. I will explain, for example, in database, while you are creating a database, right? The initial size of the database and auto growth, and plus the placement of database plays a very important role in database performance. That I will teach you. But at the same time, I will also try to show you how you can create a database using PowerShell, right? That will be a good approach. For example, if you are learning backup and restore using SQL Server, and most of you do, I think that you do in your day-to-day life, you know about that. So I will not have to put much emphasis on that. Rather, I will touch the advanced topics there under the backup and restore. But I will also tell you how to back up the database using PowerShell, how to restore the database using PowerShell, right? How to, when you are creating a login, At the same time, through the GUI method, you assign some server level role to the login. Also, you create some users which are mapped to the login, right? And then you assign some database level role to that login, to that user. And if you are only assigning public role to the user, then you would like to assign granular level roles, such as providing the rights for altering a table or reading a table, executing a stored procedure, or execution rights on a particular schema. Different kinds of granular roles are there that usually you perform using your grant statement, right? So I will also try to tell you, right, to teach you that how you can create a user, how you can create a login, how you can assign roles to the user using PowerShell, right? So that will be the parallel approach. And in this manner, you will have 2-3 months for learning PowerShell. And I believe, and I'm sure that after end of the course, you will be a very well-versed programmer in PowerShell. This is my thinking, but what other people do, that if you teach you PowerShell, so they will finish within 8 or 10 classes or 6 classes, and they will go at very fast pace. So even they will provide you some script. Using that, you can work, you can modify, but you will not have the ability to write your own script. So your objective is to learn PowerShell in terms of SQL Server automation. And for that, you will have to start from the very beginning. So I'm not starting SQL Server database administration with SQL Server topic. Rather, I would like to start it with PowerShell, right? So what is my thinking behind that? I already explained. I hope you all are agree with that. It's fine, Balaji, can you go on audio? You are on video. So it's fine, guys?
Yes, Neeraj, fine.
Okay. So let us try to first understand about any language. This scripting, this PowerShell is a scripting language, right? So anyway, it's a language. Language. Let me increase the font here. It's fine. So when you learn a language such as English, what you have to learn? You have to learn alphabet of that language first, right? Then when you have the alphabet, you should have some words in your vocabulary of that language to speak or write, but to speak or write it grammatically correct, you have to learn about its grammar also, right? Likewise, any programming language has also its own alphabet, has its own keywords or words that consist its those consist its dictionary, and it has its own syntax that falls under its grammar, right? So in English language, you can you may know that syntax is the part of English grammar, right? Syntax, etymology, prosody, etc., are the part of English grammar, right? So likewise, every programming language has its own grammar, and especially when I talk about grammar, we learn about the syntax of that language under the grammar. So when you write a statement in PowerShell, it follows a particular syntax because it's a language, right? So you have to understand the syntax of each of the statements, right? Before writing the program, you must have collection of some keywords, or those keywords are here basically are in two classes. One is CMDlets that I've shown you yesterday, some of CMDlets. some of the CMD-lets that I shown you yesterday are, we can execute even CMD-lets from here also, or from the command prompt also, right? So are you all in front of your laptop? I hope so. Can you start your PowerShell? Go to, all are doing, go to search window, type in PowerShell here, right? And click on this PowerShell app here. All are doing? Right, yes or no?
Yes, Neeraj. Right click, run as administrator.
Yeah, please do. It will make you more confident. You will not have to rely on recording. You will be more confident here. So type in PowerShell in your search window, and first I click on this, click on run as administrator. So you are on the PowerShell prompt. This is PowerShell prompt. This is not DOS prompt. DOS prompt basically, or the command prompt you say, is usually you go using CMD. So when you type CMD, the command prompt is here, and you can also go to the command prompt. So whatever you execute here, so you execute from the command prompt. Those are DOS commands. I showed you yesterday, such as I want to see the directory listing of this command. Directory is similar to your folder. So under C drive, I have a directory. Windows, under Windows, I have system32 is a directory, and I want to list this directory, right? I want to see this directory, that what are the items exist in this directory. So a directory can contain two kinds of entries. One is your subdirectories or files, right? You can see here there are a lot of subdirectories and files are there. Some of them are files, have extension .dll, they are dynamic link library files. Some are batch files, some are exe files, some are DTD files, right? So a lot of files are there. Apart from that, you will also see some directories are there. If I go up, first you will see the directory listing. Let me go somewhat faster. So here you see few directories are there. Directories named with 0409, 1003, right? These are the directories. So this is the command prompt of DOS shell. And now I am on PowerShell here, PowerShell prompt. I can see the directory of the PowerShell prompt by executing the commandlet. This is not known as command, rather it is known as commandlet. All commandlets are written in C#. That is the language of .NET. So get child item. Every commandlet starts with a verb. You saw yesterday, I executed one command, set -execution policy. Here I am executing the commandlet as get child item. Get is the verb, child item is the noun. And these verbs are, every verb is separated with the noun with the help of a hyphen. This will work the same, right? You can see here, same listing is here. Another interesting thing is here that you can even, to clear the screen, you can type CLS, but that is the DOS command. To clear the screen for the PowerShell, you have the clear host command, right? So you have to type clear host. Your screen will be clear. The spelling is wrong. CLEARHOST, clear host, right? The screen is clear. So you will have to learn about the commandlets, right? That is what I mean to say. You will have to learn about the commandlets when you are learning the PowerShell as a language, because there are a lot of commandlets that will help you in performing different kinds of tasks. Second thing that you will have to learn is the constructs of any language, right? When we talk about programming language, we have some certain constructs. For example, if you want to take the backup of a database, but that backup can only be taken if that database exists on the given SQL Server instance, right? So what is my condition? My backup command should proceed only when the database exists on the server. Otherwise, it should display a message that this database does not exist. You get it? So this is a condition. If the database exists, then only backup command will proceed. Otherwise, a message will be prompted or given to the user that database does not exist on this server. This database does not exist on this server. So this is a condition, right? To make it simpler, in day-to-day life, you also take decisions based on some conditions. Perhaps you might have learned one book during your student life in college, Let Us See, written by Yaswant Kanitkar. How many of you have gone through that book? Did anybody learn that book? He was the first Indian author. He is a professor in IIT Mumbai, and he was the first Indian author who wrote the book on C language. Otherwise, most of the people were reading the book at that time, written by Ritchie and Cunningham, who developed C in AT&T Bell Laboratories, right? So, but Yaswant Kanitkar written the book excellently, and when you go through that book, you will see that you are talking with him, right? You will feel that you are talking with him. So, just I'm giving the analogy of conditional check from his book that I learned before 20 or 25 years ago. Here, where he talked about the conditions that if it rains, there are two, the condition is if it rains. Now, there are two actions that you can take. Either you stay at home or you take an umbrella. So we can write it, if it rains, that is the condition. Now in the action, stay at home, right? Or else, we can write else, take an umbrella and go outside, right? So likewise, many conditions are there which you I'm sorry, there might be some disturbance, but I should be audible now, right? I'm audible?
Yes, Neeraj.
Okay. So when the condition is not complex, we go with simple if statement. When the condition is somewhat complex, that has multiple conditions, right? We have other constructs available. These are known as constructs. If is a construct in PowerShell or any language, if you talk about C, C++, Java, C#, Visual Basic .NET, Visual C++, PowerShell, if you talk about Unix shell like corn shell, warn shell, C shell, everywhere if is there, right? So if is a construct for conditional checking. When you have to do multiple condition checking, right, you can use the case and switch statement. Talk about that. When you have to perform a task repeatedly, right, for multiple times, you will have to go through a loop. You can establish a loop using 2-3 constructs that are available in PowerShell. One construct is for. For has 3 variants, for each, and for each object. We will talk about this all later on. Then you also have another looping construct here, that is do and while, right? Do while. So do and whatever you want to do, specify your action, and while will continue your condition until and unless that condition does not meet. Continuously, you can perform that task, right? So basically, and our more advanced concept is there while you are performing the task. If any error is caught, if any error is thrown in your logic or in PowerShell, that should be caught, right? So there is a concept of try, catch, and throw. This is the somewhat advanced concept. This is known as error handling mechanism. We will talk about that also. The objective to explain these all things is that I'm not going to teach these all things right now or in the beginning, but yes, of course, you can start with the very initial things like if you can start. That is the very initial construct, and after that, you will have to write some uh, basic programs where conditions will be based on your day-to-day life activity. And after that, we will try to relate those conditions with the database SQL Server technology, right? That will be the easier approach to understand. That will be the approach. Now, if I started to talk about language, let me tell you something more. When we talk about language, the journey of language starts from the first generation of language that was completely machine language, and it was based on binary codes. Only all instructions were written only in the form of 0 and 1 there, and its use was only limited to the scientists, right? Because it was pretty much cryptic there. Later on, to play with the CPU memory addresses, right, and different registers within CPU, one language and different ports that you have, or peripherals, different ports are, I'm talking about the ports that you have on your motherboard. So when you insert the device, such as mouse or any USB drive, right? So especially you insert in the port, right? So assembly language was developed in the second generation language, and that was somewhat using the mnemonic codes. Mnemonic means which is not in the form of 0 and 1, which does not completely consist of binary strings. Rather, English words were used. Those were called mnemonic codes. But still, it was very hard to write assembly code by general programmers. So its use was again limited to scientists one. Later on, some third generation languages were introduced, and that journey started with basic language, followed by Fortran and Pascal, right? Uh, After that, COBOL was also introduced. So these languages were in the third generation, which were very similar to English-like language. And when the programming language came close to the English language or the pseudo codes, it became easier for programmers to understand and write the business logic in programming codes to implement. Later on, databases were developed, right? And for databases, which are operating basically on sets of data. So whenever you execute a query against a table or a set of query or a set of tables, when you perform union, join, right? You basically perform a operation on more than one table, that is more than one data set. But ultimate result is again the result set that you get is again a data set, right? So T-SQL language, not T-SQL, the SQL structured query language was especially developed to talk with databases which are hosted on a particular relational database management system. And that was a standard was established by ANSI, American National Standard Institute, in 1971 for a structured query language, and it was released. So then different vendors added some more constructs in that, and they introduced with their name. So Microsoft added its own constructs in the original ANSI in the original SQL standard of 1971, and they introduced it as T-SQL, Transact SQL, right? In Oracle, based on that NCS standard, the language was developed that was named that was named PL SQL, right? Likewise, you have different flavors of SQL too, which operates with different programming languages. So SQL language is used, a structured query language or languages are used to interact with databases. You should be clear. But programming languages have capability. If I talk about C language, it has the capability to interact with the text file, to interact with your database, to interact with your, any kind of binary file, which is in the form of your audio, video, or PDF files. C language can even use assembly language features, right, or assembly language constructs. So in C language, you can write even assembly language constructs also. Likewise, C++. So C was procedure-oriented language, where you have to specify each of the step in order to perform the action, what you want to do. For example, if you have to, say, for example, if you have to read a file, say, for example, if you have created a data file, we did that when we learned about C. We created a data file. So with the extension of .dat, it was, although not a text file, but almost a text file. So databases were treated as text file there early times, and where each of the data value was separated by comma or colon, something like that. Delimiter was used there. So you have to read the data in order to find a particular value in that database, the data file that you have created. In that particular value you have to create. So what are the actions you have to take there? First, you have to open the file. Then you have to check whether it is beginning of file. Yes. Then you have to start the loop, and you have to read the value of each line, right? That and then you have to compare where that value matches the value you are finding, right? Then you have to advance to the next line or next row. Then you are again, checking that whether it is end of file. If it is end of file, then search is finished and the value did not found. But if it is not in the file, again, you have to send the control back to the next record or next line. Then you are searching again, you are comparing again. So I mean that you have to find a particular value in a data file which you have created using C language or C++ language, right? So in order to search a particular value, you have to specify each of the action that has to be taken, right? So procedural language such as C, even C++ is your object-oriented language, right? But C, Pascal, Fortran, these are your procedural language, where you specify what have to be done, what actions, not what actions, how those actions will be performed, right? But in T-SQL language, you don't specify that what actions have to be performed. How the actions have to be performed. You only have to specify what you want, right? So, for example, when you have to search for a particular value in a table, what you do, you simply write a where clause there, isn't it? For example, I have to search a particular value here in a table. Say, for example, I want to search particular rows. Select a star from cell start, sales order detail, and I'm searching for a sales order ID in this table. Sales order ID. Where? Where is already written. Sales order ID equals to a particular value. Say, for example, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. I want to search this value, right? You can see here, I don't have to open this table. I don't have to check each record, right? I don't have to advance the search for the next record. I don't have to compare the value each time for the next record. I don't have to check the table marker, whether it is end of row, right? Nothing I have to do. What I want, only I have to specify. And that is the beauty of T-SQL language or any structured language, query structured language, right? This falls under fourth generation language, right? Next, the artificial language was introduced, right? Such as Python. Then you have R, then you have Lisp, Auto Lisp. These are your artificial language, where you know you have to act differently. You have to, in that case, you have to create a model for the data, and based on that model, you have to operate using the different methods or functions available in that language. That is the artificial language. What we are going to learn is not a first generation language, not a second generation language, third, fourth, or fifth generation language. We are going to learn about a scripting language, that is PowerShell, right? It is not close to any language, but yes, of course. Hence, I know C#. C# is a object-oriented, event-driven language, right? Your C++ is an object-oriented language, but Java, C#, Visual Basic.NET, Visual++.NET, these are your object-oriented, event-driven language. When I say event-driven, it means that when you might have seen on many of the web applications, right? There are multiple buttons, and when you click on a particular button, internally an event is generated. For example, a mouse has 3 kinds of event, right? You can right-click the button of mouse, you can left-click the button of mouse, you can double-click, isn't it? So 3 kinds of events are generated. Whenever you take some action, some kinds of events are generated, and that event can be caught using C# or Java, right, or Visual Basic.NET or Visual C++.NET, and on the basis of that action that you have taken, the event was generated, right? Sorry, on the basis of the event that was generated, you can take an appropriate action, right? So that's why these languages are known as event-driven language. PowerShell, so far is concerned, it is very close to your object-oriented, event-driven concept, because you will be surprised to know that PowerShell uses the same, .NET library. If your .NET framework is not installed on your server, your PowerShell will not work properly. You got my point? So to work with PowerShell, your .NET framework must be installed on your system. I am not saying that PowerShell will not work at all, but when you will use its database components, it will fail. right? So you have to install your .NET framework also on the system, at least 3.5 or 4.5 you should install. So I hope that on all of your laptop, this PowerShell is accessible. I hope so. Is it? PowerShell is accessible for all? I'm not getting any answer from all of you. Hello, guys.
Yes, yes, Neeraj. PowerShell is installed on my laptop.
For how many of you PowerShell is accessible? What rest are doing?
Yes,
Fakhruddin, Kaz, Balaji, Jitin. Do you have?
yes, Neeraj. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, here the approach is learning by doing, right? While we will do something, we will learn something. It will be not completely, conceptual that I will start with the data type, right? And then I will go for constructs, something like that. I'm not going to do in that manner, right? Let us try to learn something today. If you will be able to write even a simple code, right, in PowerShell, that will be today's today achievement, right? So what I am going to do today, right? I will show you an example of if construct. I will write the code, right? So let us talk about our requirement. What is the requirement, right? You know that a person who is more than of 18, right? In terms of age, can exercise his franchise, can cast his vote. Am I correct? Right. So what we will do, we will create a age variable. We will assign some value in that, and then we will check whether or if age is equals to or greater than 18. We will simply print a message that person can vote, or if that is not true, that the age that we will assign will be less than 18, that person cannot vote, right? So let us try to write that code. So what we want first, we want the age. I told you yesterday, every variable in PowerShell starts with $sign, right? So my variable is age. What it is going to contain? It is going to contain a value, say for example, 20, right? I don't have to define its type, because whatever the value I will assign, accordingly, PowerShell will assign the value to that, to the type to that variable. What I told you, let me show you here. So if I print here, its type, what type PowerShell is going to assign to age, let me show you here. So I have to type here age. Every kind of variable has its own methods. These are the methods, those are available here. Let us not talk about all the methods, that will make somewhat complex for you. What I want to get here, the type that PowerShell is going to assign to this variable. So I am going to get it type, right? So what is the type? Get type is a method of this this variable, right, that we have assigned. Let us simply see that what kind of variable we have assigned. Integer variable, right? So it should show me that the age is an integer type of variable. You see here int 32, right? It's a integer type variable, right? Likewise, if I'm going to assign a if I'm going to create a variable with the name, say Neeraj, right? What kind of variable it is? I put hash here, right? That is incorrect. Every variable must start with $sign. Now, if I check it type, what is the type of my variable. So I will type the variable name dollar name, right? Dot get type. So this should be a string type. Let us execute it again. This T button, inclined T button that you see here is used to clear the screen as the output. This is your output window here, right? So this is used to clear the output window. Let us execute it. You can see that the first one, that is int type, right? And second is my string type, right? But strings are treated as objects, right? We will talk more about that later on. Let us do something now. Now I have two things, age and the name of the person, right? So now I have to decide on the basis of the condition that whether this person is eligible to vote or not, right? What is the condition? Condition is that if a person is greater than or equals to 18 in terms of age, he can vote, else he cannot vote. So what is the condition in pseudocode, right? Let me write the pseudocode on Notepad here. If, how we will write that? Age is greater than equals to, right? 18, print, right? Person can vote, isn't it? Else, print, person cannot vote. Am I correct? And every if ends with end if in pseudocode. This is the end. So on the basis of this pseudocode, you can write, you can convert this pseudocode in any language. PowerShell is a language, right? So I can convert it in PowerShell. How we can do that? So let me first copy it, and after that, I will convert it in PowerShell, right? So let us write it now. If is a construct in PowerShell, and whatever condition you specify, that you must have to write within this parenthesis. So if age is my variable, and that is starts with $sign. So I will write age, right? Greater than and equals to in PowerShell is represented with the operator greater than equals to must be with G and E, greater than equals to, right? GT is for greater than, then GE is greater than equals to. So I will write instead of greater than equals to, I will write GE. If is greater than equals to 18. Right? What action I have to close this condition here? What action I have to take? So now that action will be taken in the block. You can see there are two blocks. One is print person can vote, another is else block. If the condition is true, one action I have to take, else another action I have to take, right? So there are two blocks. Every block a block can be a single line statement, a block can contain multiple lines of statements. So here I have a single line of a statement. Yes, start my block, and then I have to print. So equivalent to print, I have write host here, WRITE, write host. You can see that is coming here due to intelligence feature, write host. What I have to print now, right? So I have assigned a name also, right? So I can print dollar name, right? I'm writing it simply. It may throw some error. Deliberately, I'm writing. I will tell you how to, make it correct. Right task, name, Neeraj. It will print can vote, right? And this block has to be closed. Else, block start, right host, dollar name, cannot vote. It's simple, and we have to close this. That's it. We converted the pseudocode. We don't have to specify indifferent for if in PowerShell, right? There is no end if for any if. Simply the block starts and block ends. My code is ready. Let us execute it. It may throw some error, may not throw some error. I'm not sure. But if it will throw error, I will tell you why it is throwing some error. It's the type I have to eliminate. I don't want to see the type now, right? So now let us clear the screen and execute it. What it is saying, Neeraj can vote. You saw here, the output is Neeraj can vote because the age field the age value that we have assigned here is 20, and by condition, if age greater than equals to 18 is evaluating as true. So if, then take this action. If this is true, then take this action. If the condition is false, then take the else action, right? I'm going to now assign a smaller value, say 17, right? So this time you will see that the else block will execute because the condition will execute false. If is greater than or equals to 18, no, it is false, it is 17. So this condition will evaluate to false and the else part will execute. Let us execute it. You see here, Neeraj cannot vote, right? You got it? Any confusion here?
No.
Neeraj.
That's good. That's good. That's
One
good.
small, how to comment a specified line? Is there a way?
Sorry?
Comment the line.
Okay, to comment the line, simply you have to put one hash before the line, right? So if I want to put a comment in the line, right? So I will start with single hash. You can put a single hash, you can put double hash, how many hashes you want to put. It doesn't matter. It will become the comment line. So you have to write comment within hash, not within hash, starting with hash. So for example, this program will judge whether the person can vote or not, right? Let us execute. This line will not exist. Clear the screen, execute it. You see there, that is the comment line. It was not executed, right? Here, Neeraj cannot vote because I have assigned the value 17, right? Now, here I'm operating with the fixed value, right? Here I am operating with the fixed value. My age and name are abjectly not variables, they are constants. They are constant in nature. Every time I execute this program, right? So it will execute for the same value. That is not what is the ask for the real world. This is only testing for one age and one person. Now I want the name and age of the person to be entered by user, and on the basis of that, it should be decided whether that person should be, whether that person should be able to vote or not, isn't it? So Now I have to read the value from the user. To get the value, to read the value from the user, you have the read host command, right? So write host is to print the value, to display the value, and read host is to get the value. So let us copy this code here and make it some modification in this. I don't want the fixed values here. This logic will be there only, right? I don't need this comment line. Let us delete it. Now try to read the value, right? So my first statement will be here to declare a variable $, and that is age, or first take the value of the name. And here I will introduce read or EAD. What is that? Or EAD, read host, right? And within double quote, I will specify what I want to be entered from the user. Enter the name of person, right? Here. Then I want age also. So age equals to read host, enter the age of the person, right? Well, I have to do this. I have to use read host in this case. Let us try to execute what is happening. It is asking me to enter the name of the person. I'm executing here, say for example, Amit. Enter the name of the person. I'm executing here 40, right? So you can see here, Amit can vote. That is my output. That is what my program is saying. Amit can vote, right? Let us re-execute it again. And this time specify a different value. Say for example, I am specifying here GITHIN, and his age is say 25. So Jitin can vote, right? I'm executing now. Enter the name of the person. This time say I am executing here, say for example, Soumya, and his age is say 14, right? Soumya cannot vote. So my logic is getting properly executed here, right? So you have learned three things here: how to print the value, how to display the value using write host, cmdelete, how to get the value from the user using the read host command, and how to check a simple condition using the if construct. Any questions here? No question?
No, Neeraj.
Okay. So that's fine. Now I'm trying to relate this if statement to check that if a database exists in the given server or not, right? So that will be somewhat interesting. So for that, you can see these are operating on simple variables. I do not need to import, SQL modules here in the PowerShell. But when I will have to operate on SQL Server, right? So I will have to, import the actual assemblies under which my PowerShell runs. Let me tell you what I'm talking. While you are working with SQL Server in PowerShell, this is always going to play a very important role. What is this? What is this? Actually, this complete that you see here, Microsoft.SQL Server .management.smo.server. So up to SMO here, up to SMO, you can say this is your not like that. Up to this part, up to management, this is your namespace. And after that, SMO is your assembly, and then server is the class. So likewise, you will see many, basically it is known as assemblies. People do not call it in this manner. Namespace follow assembly, follow namespace followed by assembly, followed by the class. See, people simply say that you have to import some assemblies, right? Before PowerShell, PowerShell actually has different version. It starts from version 1, version 2, version 3, 4, 5, like that. We have currently version 6, right? So starting from version 3 or 4, I'm not sure, you have to work with SQL Server by importing the module SQL PS. But in version 2 and 3, you have to import all the assemblies manually. Let me show you here what those assemblies are. I have somewhere in the document, there is a list of 20-30 assemblies that you have to call. It should be all documents are open. Check everywhere I'm importing SQL PS. I'm putting that. Anybody think something? Everywhere are SQL. Let me Google that and try to take some time. Load SMO assemblies in PowerShell that we already did. This is one method from registry. Here it is, assembly list. This I was talking. So in order to work with SQL Server, right? If you are working in a earlier version in PowerShell 2 or 3, that usually now you don't have to work, right? So these assemblies should be loaded as the initial code. These assemblies should be written as the initial code in any program, right? If you are working on PowerShell version 2 or 3, up to 3, but starting from 4, you don't have to load these assemblies. These all assemblies are inbuilt in this module itself. that I have imported here. Somewhere I can show you where it is. Yes, import model SQL PS, right? SQL PowerShell, you have to PowerShell for SQL Server, you can say that you have to import only in ST of loading these all assemblies, right? So these are the different assemblies here. This class is here. You can see, sorry, assembly is here. Microsoft SQL Server.sm. Apart from that, these are the different assemblies that you usually need to work with SQL Server. But you don't have to use that. So here is the list of assemblies that you can see. We have assigned as a string object separated by comma. Every assembly is separated with a comma here, right? So it's a string array, you can say, and that is going to be assigned in the assembly list, a string array variable. And then we are looping through, this assembly list here, a string variable, using the for each. I have not talked about for each yet. We'll talk it later on. We are reading from each of the module from the assembly list, a string array, and we are assigning everyone for each execution in the ASF variable, and then we are loading here the reflection.assembly method using the load partial name method, right? We are loading each of the assembly, right? That is, this load with partial name is a method here, and ASM for ASM, each of the assembly is coming here. Every time the loop executes, first time this will be loaded, right? Second time this will be loaded. Likewise, every assembly will be loaded, right? So load partial method is the method that is available under this reflection.sm, right? So that will be loaded. Now you don't have to do this. What you have to do, you have to only import the SQL module instead of loading all assemblies, right? So let us come and talk about the existence of a database. So what we are going to do, we will ask the user to enter the name of a database. So we will ask the user to enter two things: the server name, that is the SQL instance name, and the database name. User wants to check whether that database exists in that SQL server or not. I'm just trying to relate the if statement, use of if statements with the SQL server, right? So first we saw with simple example. Now let us try to do that using SQL Server database. So what I'm going to do now, let me copy only this part. Window here, right? So first I have to import the SQL PS. Then second, what I have to do, I will ask the user to enter the server name, right? So let us remove this, and I want user to input the SQL Server instance name, and that instance name will be assigned in a variable. So I have the variable as SQL, I have the variable as server name, right? I can change it to SQL instance name, right? I want the input from the user. So what cmdelete I should use here to get the input from the user for the SQL instance name? What cmdelete I should use? Tell me.
Read host.
Yes, read host. Then, sorry, what can write read host? What to read? We will prompt the user to enter, sorry, in or enter SQL Server. What is happening? INSTANCE instance name. And then next we have to ask the user to enter database name, right? So we can create a variable as DB name. All are getting?
Yes.
Enter name of database to search. Now we have SQL instance name from the user. We have database name from the user. I have to search that I have to search the database in the SQL instance, but I don't have SQL instance right now, right? I have the SQL instance name that is entered by the user, but in PowerShell I don't have yet the actual SQL instance object created, right? The SQL instance object I can create using the SMO server class, right? So what we are doing, using the SMO server class, we are creating a new object for the given instance name, right? So this is my instance name here, right? And I'm assigning this instance name to a variable server. This is very important to understand what we are doing here. I am creating a object, new object you can see here. I am creating a new object of SMO server class, which represents my SQL server. Which SQL server it will represent? The name that I will assign to this new object. SQL instance name is going to be entered by the user. So whatever user will enter, SQL instance name, that will be assigned, that will be created with the help of SMO server class, and that will be assigned in the server variable, right? So whatever variable name you want to specify here, you can specify. You can write here SQL instance, right? Let me write here SQL instance. So SQL instance name, whatever the value will be assigned by the user in SQL instance name, that instance, using that instance, a new object of SMO server class will be created, and that SMO server class will actually represent that instance. So for example, if user will enter this instance name here, I will exactly do that, right? So what will happen? This name, let me copy it as well, so that I will enter at the runtime. So what will happen? This SQL Server instance name will be assigned to the SQL instance variable, and that then using that instance name, a new SMO server class will be created. So now this SQL, and that will be assigned to the SQL instance variable. So now this SQL instance variable, represents whatever object I have in SQL Server. It represents the complete, objects that I have in that SQL Server instance. It represents all databases. It represents all linked servers. It represents all jobs. It represents, all server level triggers. It represents all server level settings. Everything is there. So up to this point, we have created our SQL Server, you can say SQL Server instance, and that is assigned in the SQL instance variable, right? Now, let us try to list the databases I have in this instance. After that, we will take the next action. So what databases are there in this instance? I want to list that. So for that, I will specify here this variable SQL instance, which is representing now my SQL server dot. If you press here dot and specify here why it is not coming. Is it correct? Data BASES basis. Let me try to execute it, what it is going to do. So let us execute it. It is asking me to enter the SQL instance name, right? Then it is asking me to enter the database name. I'm writing here ABC. For this logic, I have not done anything here right now, but I want to list the databases. So it is listing my databases. That's fine. It means that now I have the list of my databases. I can access databases here. My next task is the database name that I've entered as ABC. I have to check whether it exists here or not, right? So how I can do that? That is the question, right? So let us do through, I have to use the, I am checking the condition. So I have to use if, then this represents my all databases, right? All databases. $SQL instance.databases list all databases. Here, one method should be there that is known as contains. Let us see whether it appears or not. CONT, yes, contains is there. If this all databases contains which database? The database that I entered here is stored in $DB name variable. Contains this $DB, sorry. What I did, $DB name is here. Let us copy it. If it contains, this is the close of this one, contains, and this is the close of this if, right? So if SQL instances dot databases contains this, right, then I will display a message, start the block, I will display a message, write WRITE, write host, and $DB name, where I will enter my database name that will appear here, DB name, exists, right? And then close, else, write host, $DB name does not exist, isn't it? And then close it. Do we have any error anywhere? No. Right, so all are clear what we are doing? Let us execute it. So my instance name I copied. No, this is not my instance name, this is my variable name. Let me copy from here. This is my instance name that I'm going to specify here. This is my instance name, and database name, say for example, I'm giving here anything, A, B, C, D, E, F. It does not exist. So my message should come as write host, DB name does not exist. But okay, so I have to, but that message is coming, A, B, C, D, E, F does not exist. I have to remove this part from here. Right, now again execute it and specify the instance name, give the instance name, then give the database name, say for example DERTY, something like that. It is saying DERT does not exist, right? Now take the database name that exists here. So for example, AdventureWorks 2016 exists here, right? This is here. I have to also copy my instance name. This is my instance name. Then specify it here. And let us execute the script now. Let us close this, execute it. This is my instance name. And this is my database name. I will copy from here to here. Just click here, AdventureWorks 16 exists, right? So let us do one thing more. Let us make it somewhat, effective. So while you are printing, while you are displaying any message, you can specify its foreground and background color. So if it does not exist, I will specify. I want to display it in red, right? And if it exists, I want to display it in green. So foreground color, and this is in green, right? Let us do that now. Execute, execute. Let us come back. Close this, come here. This is my server name or instance name. Right? This is my instance name. And this is my database name. So it should display in green if it exists there, right? AdventureWorks 16, what it's saying. Oh, for the exist, we wrote it in red. It should be in green, right? CREE and green, and it should be in red, right? Come on, execute it. Come here. Let us copy this. Go back. Let us put it here. Sorry, instance name I put incorrect, right? So it will throw some error that this instance does not exist, something like that. See here, that instance name was not found. That's why you see the error, failed to connect to it 2016 because it does not exist here, right? Let's execute it again. The instance name I specified. The database name is here now. So it exists there. So it should display in green now. AdventureWorks 2016 exists, right? So any question here that we have discussed?
Neeraj, how is it getting authenticated to the engine? Like we are not mentioning any username or password. So how is it getting authenticated?
It is authenticated using Windows or that is integrated security, Windows authentication, right?
Okay. Windows.
So if you want to connect it using SQL Server authentication, that you can also do. But I don't remember. I'm on a different laptop. I will have to reset the password, or even I can create a login.
Neeraj, one question.
Yes, tell me.
So here only in the SSMS you are specifying whether it is Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication, right? But from the PowerShell command, how does it know that it has to use Windows authentication?
By default, it's Windows authentication, right? We
Pardon?
can specify by default it's Windows authentication, but you can specify the username and password if you want to go with SQL authentication.
Okay.
So let us
So if you
create
don't
this.
specify anything, by default, it will take the Windows, the user that you are connected with, it will take
Yes,
that.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. So if you are running any script in your environment as a DBA, right? You have your AD ID. I mean that the Active Directory ID that you have access as a login on all SQL Server. Am I correct?
Usually in our environment, they don't give that.
Okay.
They, yeah,
So in
they
that
say
case,
that you have to,
you
yeah,
can go with SQL authentication, not a problem. Let me show you. Password is
okay.
here. Anything I can specify, say Misra at 8199. Sorry. MISHRA Misra at 2021. And then MISHRA at 2021. And server role, let us keep it as sysadmin. Let us create it. That got created. Login as needed. Here, if I come to the PowerShell now, so what should I specify? Let me try user. So, just a minute. Basically, I use that using invoke SQL CMD, but I can specify it as well.
Neeraj, I pinged. Is that is a method? Just
Sorry.
I pinged in the chat window. We have to use that method to connect. Okay, maybe you're.
There are different methods, multiple methods. This is using PS credential. Windows authentication is here. Login security too. This is SQL authentication. What you think? The same thing, right? Server.connection.context.login secured false. Server.connection.context.set login credential user name. Server.connection set secure password. Let us try that. I will have to come here. Here I created SQL instance. So I want to replace each of this, this, and this. Login secure, that is integrated security is false. Connection.set login create.username, but I have to specify the credential as well then. So It is set the user master. Dollar. Log that creates still not what simply the dollar log equals to cost integer to connect to SQL Server. Login has been taken, then we need the password also. Dollar password equals to cost integer password for the login. That's it. And then it will come from login dot user. No, not accept. So secure password is here. Okay, we can do one thing here. Another method I'm telling. Let's leave it. It's involving secure false. Use get credential. Or the get credential. Enter login name to connect. Enter login and password to connect to SQL Server. But before that, we have to make it false. The credential is here. We create the object. Now we are making it false. And then login dot this login dot password. Right. Yeah, correct. So we disable the integrated security with the login secure false. And then we have a specified here the credential that we are specifying the login username and then the password. So it's a work now. Let's give it a try. Created one user as Neeraj and the password as Misra@2021. Let me execute it. Server name is here. What it is asking next, database to search. Next, it will ask me for the credential. So here I have to specify the credential name. This is H. And then password. Okay. Yes, it works. So we got connected using that. AdventureWorks 2016. It is giving me the message, right? But usually we do not prefer this method, right? We prefer to connect with Windows authentication because that is more secured. You know that what is the difference between Windows authentication and SQL authentication? You know about that? Which is considered to be the secured method and why?
Windows authentication is more secure.
Why?
Because SQL Server authentication, anyone can get into your Windows and do it that way. But Windows authentication
How?
is you are securing. Right.
How?
If they, let's say there is a,
Mhm.
if they try to hack into your system and if they have access, then that means they can easily go use the SQL Server authentication. But whereas
How?
Windows authentication will
No,
be
if any person even has even has my SQL username, SQL login name, but he does not have my password, how we can connect to SQL Server? How? It's not possible, right?
Mhm.
If that is possible, then
Yes.
it's a big breach. It's a very great breach, I can say, for security. That is not possible, right? If anyone
Mhm.
has access on Windows Server, right? If anyone
Mhm.
has access on Windows Server, so does it mean that he will access SQL Server, which is hosted on that Windows Server? The answer is no, until and unless his login is not created with that Windows ID, that AD ID, right? In SQL Server,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Likewise, if there is a SQL use login there, and if that person does not have the password of that SQL login, he cannot connect to SQL Server. Is it correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. So that is not the difference. Where the security makes the difference between Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication is that when you perform Windows authentication, what happens? That is authenticated using Kerberos authentication through your Active Directory, right?
Mhm.
And you connect to SQL Server from a client usually. You as an administrator, most of the time go to the server by using its, by taking its RDP, and then you connect to the SQL Server using Management Studio, right?
Yeah.
That is running on the same server. Most of the times you do, but you can connect a SQL Server remotely from other server as well using the Management Studio. So what you are doing, your Management Studio is a client utility, right? So from the client, you are not specifying your password. You are only passing your Windows ID there, right? When you
Mhm.
connect to SQL Server from Management Studio, from a remote server, you don't have to specify your password. That authentication is done using Kerberos authentication using your Active Directory. Got it?
Correct. Correct.
So your credential is not passed over the network, right?
Mhm.
Your credential
Yes.
is not passed over the network. But when you connect to SQL Server using SQL authentication, you have to specify your username plus your password, and that travels over the network in plain text format. That is the big problem, right? So then again,
Mhm.
you have to secure it by implementing some kind of SSL or TSL technology, right?
Okay.
Got it? So
Yeah.
it's not a preferred method to connect with SQL Server authentication, right? Especially when you are managing many of the servers using PowerShell script, right? You should not prefer to connect using SQL Server authentication if it is necessary, right? So then from the security perspective, if you are a senior guy, you should ask the question that is SSL encryption is implemented for data in transit, because authentication also comes under data in transit. Got it, guys?
Neeraj, so this is for Kerberos or like Kerberos, right? What about
Mhm.
NTLM? Is this the same concept though?
For NTLM is not related with your AD authentication, right?
Oh, yeah. So that time also.
NT no. At the time of NTLM authentication is used when your Windows ID is also part of most of the times of the administrator group, right, of the server. And when you connect to SQL Server locally, at that time NTLM is used, isn't it? So there, your password is not going to be, traveled over the network. You are connecting it locally. Am I correct?
Yes, yes, I think.
Right. So in that case, NTLM, hence it allows you to connect locally. So it is secured method there, right? Your password is not traveling over the network.
Okay, got it. So our idea is the password should not travel through the network. So we can use
Yes.
Kerberos or NTL. Okay, got it.
Yes. Right. Right.
Also, while using PowerShell for administration, it is always better to have the sysadmin role, right? Because
Yes. 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 Then only you can automate entire, objects of the SQL Server.
okay, got it.
If
Thank
you
you.
have limited role, what you can do? Say, for example, if you have to create a linked server using PowerShell, how you can do that, right? So in that case, you will need setup admin to create the linked server. Then again, to take the backup of the database, you need DB creator, right, or on the database level, DB backup operator, something like that. You need it, right? So to fully automate the system, yes, of course, your demand should be to go with the full rights. You must have sysadmin right on all the servers, right?
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
There is one question here. Okay. So consider refers in a cloud. Okay, my instance is hosted in cloud. Example for AWS, we have an RDS service, right? It's kind of a managed service. So for that, you are preferring for that how to handle that situation, Neeraj? Maybe if you are in Azure or AWS, okay, it's kind of a managed service platform. I mean, during that case, how can we handle the situations for Windows authentication?
During that, you mean that SQL? Yes. So for that, SSL can be implemented. No? We implement SSL
Okay.
certificate. We implement SSL using certificates. How many of you have, used that? Do you have idea? Anyone implemented SSL in SQL Server? Let me show you where you have to implement that. Where is that available? SQL service. Amazon service. Advanced startup. From where? Okay, let me enable it. Yeah, it's enabled. Enabling it. So, symbol enabled this. Here we see certificates. So it's not good. I implemented before 4-5 years ago SSL certification. I do not compare that. So let's try to start here from forest. Configuration. You need a certificate from the CA. That is the first requirement. Saying to go configuration manager, expand the SQL Server network configuration. Right click protocols for SQL Server instance, and then put these on the certificate tab. Expand SQL Server configuration manager here. SQL Server network configuration. This is here. Right click protocols for SQL Server instance, and then properties. Protocols for SQL Server instance. Okay, same before property. Right. And here you have certificate, right? And here certificate can only appear, right? If you create a certificate either locally or you have a certificate that you will import, and certificate is snapping, that should be available on the server, then only that will be listed here. And when you select the certificate, after that you have to post encryption here, set to yes. That you have to do, right? So now your whatever password you are passing or the username you are passing, right, that will be not shown in the plain text over the internet. So we will see how you can do that. I implemented it 4 or 5 years ago. I should have a document for that also. So what we will do, we will try to create a local certificate because we cannot purchase any certificate from CA that is too costly, right? So we will try to create a local Windows certificate using the Windows cert utilities there. We will create a local certificate, and then we will import that certificate in Windows, and after that, that will be reflected here. Then we can encrypt it. So using the SSL feature, SSL encryption, your username and password will be encrypted in that in that case, and then you have to, after importing the certificate, you have to set force encryption to yes. That's what you have to do, right? Yes, guys. So now I think that you have some idea of PowerShell programming. Am I correct? You have some idea?
Yes.
Neeraj, can you send this code, this program?
Okay. Let me it's better to ping on the chat. You all can copy from here, right? Because it is not documented. I wrote on the fly, right? So one is here. This is for assemblies, list of assemblies that you can use in Windows PowerShell 1, 2, and 3 version. Control B. I have not, taught you many of the basic things of PowerShell in theory, right? My objective part to just give you some idea so that you can you just start writing the codes. But at the same time, I will send you some basic documents that you can go through, and in the next class you can come up with your questions as well, right? So we will learn a few things in PowerShell in the next class, and at the same time we will learn about SQL Server database administration as well. So what is missing then? Now, can you try to write a program in PowerShell that will ask you to enter the radius of a triangle, and it will print the area of that triangle? Can you do that? Can you do that, guys? Can you got my question? You got my question?
Maybe come again, Neeraj. Area of the triangle we have to identify.
Yes. What you have to do? You have to ask the user to enter the radius of a triangle. You have to calculate the area of the triangle and print the area of the triangle. That is very simple. So it seems very simple, but when you start to write code, you will see how difficult it is for you, right? So I'm giving you 5 minutes time. Please do that, and whosoever will do, right? And even it does not execute successfully, you can show your screen. I will make you host. You can show your screen as well, right? So if you learn in this fashion, you will be more confident. I think all the codes, whatever I wrote today, right? So you can save that. You all got my question? You have to write a program in SQL Server that will ask you to enter, that will ask the user to enter the radius of a triangle, and it will print the area of the triangle for the given radius, right? Should not take more than 5 minutes of time. Please go ahead. Do that. I'm just giving a pause to the recording for 5 minutes. Is it done, guys? You all are done?
Oh, yes.
GT,
Yeah.
you told yes?
Yes.
Good. Are you able to show your screen? Or can you ping your code here in the chat box?
I can give my code.
You pinged?
I just pinged in the chat.
Good. Radius circle, read host into the radius of the circle. Yes, good. Area of circle, you multiplied it by radius. Circle multiplied by radius circle, that is r square, right? R into r. That's good. Right host, area of circle is great. It has to work. Good. Do you have some programming background, Jitin?
I know T-SQL and Python.
Oh, that's good. What about Balaji, Faz, Fakhruddin? What you did? Okay, guys, that's fine. So having some background, right now you just take simple examples, right? So just I'm writing here for your task. Just do a small programming here by just say, for example, just you can note it down here. Write a program to calculate the area of a rectangle for given this is one of the program you can write. Second, write a program to check. This is your task. You have to explore, right? If a person can marry, condition is here if the age is greater than 18. Third, little bit related to the database. Find the login. Just you have to find a login in the SQL, given SQL server, given SQL server instance, right? So just giving you the hint, everything will be same. You have to modify the program. In this program, everything will be same, right? Instead of what was that? Instead of databases, right? You have to operate with logins. So just giving you the hint here. I'm just eliminating this code from here. Or let me do that. Just copy it. I'm not doing the complete programming, just I am showing you here. This should list all logins. Unnecessarily it is asking me for database. I don't want this database name here, but still I have to specify. Just I'm checking for the logins. Oh, it listed all the logins, so it is working, right? So what I told you that instead of that database, you have to work with logins. Yeah, right. I made your task more easier. And you can exclude this part for authentication. This part you can exclude. This is for SQL authentication. You can even exclude this part for login. You can even exclude this database name as well. This is the code. Now you have to work on this. Right, guys, so hope you will do these assignments, and I will send you a few SQL Server Database Administration document too, which I hope that you all will learn, and you will come up with more questions. So in the next class, we will start our discussion with the assignment that I have provided you, a little bit about PowerShell, and then we will enter into database administration part, right? So I will give you a few ideas of PowerShell. Like today we discussed about if. In the next class, we will discuss about different kinds of variables and data types. And we will also then discuss about SQL Server Database Administration and stuff like this. So I will send you some basic documents. You all go through that, and you can read through those documents and come up with more questions so that you will have more understanding. So thank you all for your time today, and we'll see you in coming classes then. Okay.
Thanks, Neeraj.